It's been over a decade since Charlie Sheen self-destructed in a blaze of glory.
Huh? What do you think?
Must have been before my time.
But before Tiger Blood, #winning,
Some are saying that you're bipolar.
Wow, what does that mean?
You know, you're on two ends of the spectrum.
Wow. And then what? What's the cure? Medicine? I'm winning. I win here and I win there. Now what?
and the Torpedo of Truth.
Doesn't know how to spell her own name, then she loses. Oops. Bye-bye.
Okay, that's...
We love you, Meredith.
Charlie Sheen and Jon Cryer worked hard to make 2.5 Men one of the biggest hits in TV history. But while we all know about Charlie's race to the bottom, not everybody knows that Charlie almost dragged his co-star Jon Cryer with him. Before The Big Bang Theory and even Netflix, there was 2.5 Men. Jon Cryer was Alan Harper, the dorky divorced dad forced to move in with his party animal brother Charlie, played of course by Charlie Sheen. But were Jon and Charlie ever really friends? And how did Charlie Sheen almost ruin Jon Cryer's life? Did he ever apologize? Is he still getting paid? Or has the money dried up? And more importantly, what is Jon Cryer now saying about a potential revival of 2.5 Men? Today we're digging into the secret history of Charlie Sheen and Jon Cryer, so get ready for a crazy story that involves a shocking amount of testosterone cream, Courtney Cox, and the most unlikely real-life duo since peanut butter and hot sauce. You may think you know Charlie Sheen and Jon Cryer, but you don't know the half of it. Or should I say the 2.5 of it. Before we dive in, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. But now my show is starting, so come on and let's go find out. What happened? 2 men, no half quite yet. Charlie Sheen and Jon Cryer seem like total opposites, and unlike the famous song, opposites don't always attract. So how and when did this odd couple first link up? When Charlie and Jon first met in the 1980s, they weren't exactly similar. Let's just say that if they were in the same high school together, they would be sitting at completely different tables. Jon would be with the drama kids, eating a nice salad. And Charlie? Well, Charlie would be canoodling with one of his teachers in the janitor's closet. Jon Cryer was in Broadway shows and rom-coms, and he himself admits that he wasn't the biggest manly man. In fact, he was kind of a dork. How big of a dork, you ask? Well, once he was waiting to get into a club and started chatting with a beautiful brunette he thought he recognized from somewhere. When he realized where he recognized her, he blurted it out. He yelled, quote, "Hey, you're the girl from that tampon commercial." He was actually right about that, but the woman was also just Courtney Cox, and of course she did not speak to him at all after that. Charlie, on the other hand, well, he was making a name for himself in a bunch of action movies and some great comedies. But he might have been more famous for his hard partying than his acting. So what on earth would happen when the two of those guys were forced to work together? An unlikely pair. When Jon Cryer began working with Charlie Sheen, he imagined a huge disaster scene. But things didn't exactly go as planned. Jon and Charlie first worked together on the great comedy Hot Shots. At the time, Charlie was dating an adult film star and had somehow managed to turn the party up even higher. But Jon was actually impressed that Charlie's a lot of extracurricular fun didn't exactly affect his work. When 2.5 Men began, Jon was still kinda impressed by how smoothly the party animal was able to transition from film to TV. In fact, Charlie had been completely cold stone sober for 2 entire years. They took a trip to Vegas, where you'd certainly expect Charlie Sheen would run off and come back with empty pockets and 5 new girlfriends.
So the beautiful girls playing volleyball completely escaped your eye?
See him, you perv.
But he just slept the entire time. Overall, Charlie seemed almost normal, and the show was a complete smash hit. Renewed for a second season. Charlie and Jon were very good friends by then, but secretly, trouble was brewing beneath the surface. Disaster on the horizon. While Charlie and Jon had both come up in films, neither could have expected that it would be a simple sitcom that would propel them into superstardom. Jon was more famous than he had ever dreamed of, but that was nothing compared to Charlie, whose I don't give a bleep attitude kept people glued to the TV. At the time, Charlie was married to Denise Richards, the great actress and former Bond girl. Yeah, take a wild guess why the wild thing married her. But it was during the second season of 2.5 Men that their marriage began to fall apart. And with the marriage falling to pieces, so did Charlie. Unfortunately, a free bird once more, he began to spread those wings. And Jon just happened to be in the way of those wings. Charlie would be talking to Jon and he would say things were going well for him romantically. To prove his point, he would take some, well, very graphic photos of women. He would show them to Jon. Charlie was once again mixing business and fun, and things were going downhill. In fact, Charlie's wild ways began to influence Jon Cryer too, because he too was going through a divorce, and so he turned to Charlie for ways to cope. Charlie was the guy who showed him how to find escorts on the internet. That kind of stuff didn't come naturally to Jon. He spent half of his sessions helping his dates with financial planning. Then, when Jon began to date women more normally, he ran into trouble. It seemed like every date he went on, the girl had once hooked up with Charlie. It wasn't enough that Charlie had to show him up on camera every day. Charlie's character was escaping into the real world, and there was no going back. No turning back. Jon Cryer could tell Charlie was going downhill fast, and he began to distance himself from his co-star. He never could have predicted, however, the horrors that would soon come. Let's fast forward to 2009, shall we? Jon had gotten married and just adopted a baby girl with his wife. On Christmas Day, he checked the news and heard that Charlie had been arrested in Colorado. Cryer reached out to Sheen, saying he was there for him if he needed to talk. But there was no turning back. It wasn't completely over for Charlie just yet. Even with his legal troubles, he landed a raise. He was now earning a whopping $1.8 million per episode, 3 times what Jon Cryer was making. But Charlie couldn't just relax and enjoy the dough. He was getting into atrocious trouble, doing things that I can't even repeat here. Jon wanted to be there for his friend, but he no longer recognized the sober professional he had once known and respected. Just as Charlie's reign of terror was beginning, he sent Jon a text saying, "Oh, but dear man, most of it is all an act. I have a much bigger plan that will benefit us all. Trust me." He finished that with a smiley face. Now, I don't know what I would do if my friend texted me that, but I would assume that things are about to go horribly, horribly wrong. And that they did. What happened next is the stuff of internet legend, news cycle glory. Charlie Sheen's life became a whirlwind of drugs, alcohol, and women. He swiftly destroyed everything he had spent years building. In 2011, he called the creator of 2.5 Men a charlatan and a clown. And he even turned on his once good friend Jon Cryer, calling him a traitor and a turncoat. The transformation from Charlie Sheen into the king of #winning or #losing was complete. What happened next? 2.5 Men would surprise audiences by continuing for 4 more seasons. Ashton Kutcher would replace Charlie, and the show would get some good reviews.
You trying to commit suicide?
Yeah. I had no idea that the water would be that cold.
But what about Charlie and Jon? Did they ever speak again? In 2014, Jon Cryer received a call. It was Charlie Sheen's manager. Actually, it was his ex-manager. Most of Charlie's relationships had turned into exes by this point because of his tornado of self-destruction. He told Jon that Charlie wanted to apologize.
Could you believe it?
I know, I'm not sure I would believe it either. But Jon went over to Charlie's house to see if he was sincere. And indeed he was. But Jon still had a bunch of questions. Lots of superstars go on benders and burn bridges, but I don't think any of them have scorched earth as deep as Charlie. What turned him into such a madman? Well, Charlie blamed testosterone cream for his outbursts. He said, quote, 3 times a day you rub the cream on your thighs and it's deceptive. Because you feel the same, but suddenly you're flying into a rage. Where are they now? It's been nearly 15 years since Charlie's infamous meltdown, and the world has changed a whole lot. We've gone through elections, wars, and 5 new Star Wars films. But what happened to Jon and Charlie? And what about the rumors that they're gonna bring 2.5 Men back? Well, today, Jon Cryer is doing better than ever. He's starring in a new show called Extended Family, and he is still with his wife, Lisa.
Julie and I were married 18 years ago last June.
Happiest day of our lives was when we got divorced last July.
Charlie Sheen is doing better, but, well, he's still Charlie Sheen, dealing with marriage troubles and child custody issues. After the show went off the air, he was predicted to make $100 million just from rerun royalties. But Charlie sold his royalty rights, so this figure was cut down to $27 million. Allegedly, he sold them to help pay child support. But luckily, he has been sober since 2017. Well, allegedly. It takes a long time to get tiger blood out of the system. Okay, so Jon Cryer was recently asked if he'd ever consider a 2.5 Men revival. He didn't dismiss the idea, but said it was pretty unlikely. He said, quote, "You kinda have to think. I love him, I wish him the best, and he should live in good health the rest of his life. But I don't know if I want to get in business with him for any length of time."
I have loved working with Chuck. So, I don't close anything off. I loved working with those people. When it was great, it was really great. And I'm sad that it got super duper weird.
Sure, it's easy to look back at the past and think about what could have happened. What could have been if Charlie Sheen would have stayed sober. Or even go farther back. Jon Cryer had a huge chance to play Chandler on Friends, but he lost it when his audition tape was stuck in customs.
You auditioned for Friends.
Yes.
You put your audition on tape, and you mailed it into the people at Friends, right?
It's only heartbreaking to me.
No, it's heartbreaking for me to read it.
I think The World got Chandler Bing by Matthew Perry, which was, I think, a work of genius.
But don't you think he would have been
did not get its heart broken. I, however, did.
So maybe we never even get 2.5 Men. I am sure thankful we did. One thing I do know for sure, nobody is ever going to have as much tiger blood as Charlie Sheen in 2011. Alright, what do you think? Could Jon have done anything to help Charlie Sheen from destroying the show? Did you enjoy the Ashton Kutcher seasons as much as the Charlie Sheen ones? What's one particularly funny episode that you remember fondly? Get in the comments and tell me all things 2.5 Men, and hey, what's your favorite Jon Cryer film? What about Charlie Sheen? And yeah, it'll be a wild thing if you say anything other than Major League. Please get in the comments and tell us your thoughts. Click that thumbs up icon if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to our channel and come back often so we can keep telling you what happened?